This video, Copper Pipe Plumbing Project Part 1, is in playlist Copper Pipe Plumbing Project. This video is a how-to guide for copper plumbing. It describes a project using sweated copper pipe. If you are experienced with copper plumbing, this video probably isn't for you. But if you're an amateur plumber, you'll pick up tips for planning and installing a plumbing project using many types of fittings, tools, and techniques. This video is the first in a 3-part series. To watch the videos in order, please watch them from the channel page. This is a Tom's Tech Notes video. There are over 200 computer help and hobby videos on my channel page. If the video you are watching is part of a series, you should watch the series videos in order from the playlist on the channel page. To visit the channel page, you can type this URL into your browser. You can search for TOMSTDA, and you should use the Google search. If they appear in your video window, you can click my name, Thomas Wallace, my photo, or a clickable link. To be notified when videos are added or updated, click the red subscribe button and request email notifications. This video shows how to efficiently plan and carry out a plumbing project to replace and move a sediment filter in a hot water system using soldered copper pipe. The filter is part of a Pelican water softener and treatment system. Pelican recommends installing the filter when you have a tankless hot water heater, as I do. The filter is mounted on an inside garage wall. I installed the system myself, and there is a persistent slow leak where the copper pipes attach to the filter. I may have overheated the plastic or over-tightened the screw fittings during the installation. Pelican sent me a replacement filter under warranty. This video shows how to efficiently plan the project, choose the fittings needed, then cut pipes, assemble, and solder the final project. You'll also see how to mount the new filter on the garage wall. This is the old filter installation. And here's the new installation after moving the filter from here to here. So one of the first things I did in the project is I made a sketch. I knew I wanted to put the filter about here. I knew I wanted this elbow on the new filter to go straight up into this pipe instead of curling back around. And then on the other side, I'll have to make a loop to come back and up to connect to this pipe. So I knew that, so I sketched it all out. Then I propped up the new filter on a chair and a box and a piece of board until I got it up to about where I wanted to mount it, working from my sketch also. And then I obtained and connected all the fittings that were going to be required to do the job. And we'll go over those fittings in a moment. Notice that when I assembled it, though, I left this pipe extra long. This fitting is going to line up with this. I left this pipe extra long. This fitting is actually going to solder here. I did that so that I could get much further along soldering of the parts and building of the system without shutting the water off. I wanted to minimize the amount of time I had to shut the water system off. This close-up shows how the new filter will be installed to replace the old filter. The hot water pipe to the old filter goes here. The return from the filter going to the house, the hot water to the house, goes here. What I'll be doing is moving the filter that's to the right of this picture over here is where I'm installing the new filter. And I'll describe exactly how the new filter is connected, what kind of fittings I'm working with, how to handle them, how to support the work as you're connecting the fittings and so forth. And I'll describe in detail different types of copper fittings used in this project. So first of all, the fittings I'm using. This part here, it screws into the plastic filter housing. This piece is called an NPT male street adapter. NPT means it's national pipe threads on this end. The street part of the name means that the fitting will fit inside of another fitting. It's designed to fit inside of another fitting. This output side of this fitting is the same size as the copper pipe. It's designed to go into a fitting, not to go over a copper pipe. The street fitting fits inside of another fitting. The standard fitting would have this size socket on this end for inserting a copper pipe. This is a union designed to allow you to separate two parts of your plumbing and then reconnect them with a wrench. So when you unscrew it, this part has a thread on the end that this part screws over. This part is attached with a flange to this part. So when you tighten it up, it pulls these two parts together to form a watertight seal. So you put a wrench on this, a wrench on that, and you can tighten it or loosen it. The fitting ends here. It's a standard fitting so that a copper pipe would fit in here, but this is a street elbow. Again, the street elbow, part of it fits inside of another fitting as this does. This side goes over a copper pipe, 3/4 inch. This fitting is called a 1 by 3/4 reducing coupling. And 3/4 inch pipe sticks in one end, 1 inch pipe sticks in the other end. That's because the water pipe going into the wall that feeds the house is a 1 inch pipe. The hot water line coming out of the hot water heater is a 3/4 inch pipe. So somewhere in this setup you have to turn into 1 inch, and that's done right here in this fitting. The filter is designed to work with 3/4 inch pipe fittings. On the other side, I have the same combination of the union and the male adapter here that screws into the housing. I will have a street elbow soldered in, another street elbow soldered into this elbow, and then this piece of copper pipe will be soldered to this street elbow. Eventually, I'll be soldering this elbow here after this pipe's cut to length. So what I did is, and we'll show you the steps for how I did it, but what I did was I soldered these fittings together, screwed them in. We'll discuss the details on that. And I soldered this elbow to this elbow to this elbow, this pipe to this elbow, and as I said, I left it extra long, and this fitting is not soldered. On this side, same thing for here, and I soldered this fitting to this elbow to this pipe. And again, this isn't soldered, and this pipe is extra long. So as we get further along in the installation, we'll cut those to length. It's just more details showing how things are lining up. And what I did is, at this point, I went ahead and I propped everything up carefully to the right height. And I did go ahead and cut this pipe to the final length. And what I did was I took this fitting off. I laid it next to this fitting because this will go here after I unsolder this. And then I marked this pipe so that it would extend into the bottom of this fitting. And then I took the union off and I put it in the vise and I cut this pipe to the right length. And I put the fitting on, but it's not soldered yet. Some of the techniques that I had to work with. This is the fitting that screws into the side of the filter. It's difficult to support it while you're soldering it. If you clamped it in a vise, you might not have room to stick the solder in here because the vise jaws would be in the way, and also the vise would steal the heat through this nut, and you'd have a lot of trouble heating it up enough to solder. So what I did is I found a piece of conduit that was the right size to shove the threads into, and I put the pipe in a vise, and it supports it at a nice height for me to work on. And then I did the soldering. We'll talk about what we did on the threads later, how we joined it to the fittings. There's two ways to go here. You can put pipe dope around the threads, or you can put pipe tape around the threads. I talked to several plumbers, and I got about half of them said use the pipe dope, and about half of them said use the tape. But I had used the tape before, so I decided to go with the tape. So you need to support this part while you're putting the tape on, and the way I did it, this is a union. The way I support it is I bought an extra union, and I have half of that extra union. I've already soldered this. I have half of the extra union screwed into this part of the union that's soldered on, and then I just stuck a pipe into it and I put the pipe in a vise. That's how I support this, because I need to be able to easily get to the threads. You can do it one with two hands, but it's very awkward to tape a joint like this with just holding it and doing it. So it's easier if you put it in a vise. And then you wrap the tape around. And now the technique on that is you skip the first thread. You start wrapping the tape one thread back. The tape is pretty much the right width to cover all the threads, so you make 6 or 7 turns of tape. Now the trick is you go clockwise. As you look into the pipe, you're going to wrap it this way. That's because when you screw the threads into the fitting, you're going with the direction the tape is wrapped. Otherwise, you would tear the tape loose. So wrap it clockwise, 6 or 7 turns, skipping the front thread. You can easily just tear the tape off at the end, hold it down with your thumb and tear it, and then just smooth the torn edge down. There's 2 of these fittings. You screw each one into one side of the filter housing. You put a wrench on here, you snug it. You don't, be careful not to over tighten it because you might crack the plastic housing, the plastic filter housing, but do make it snug. I don't know how to describe that any other way. Remember, this piece, this nut, is part of this fitting that is soldered here and screwed in. So this nut will stay on this fitting. This part will unscrew. This part, though, for this job is only to support it. There is this part on the fittings that will attach to it, and we'll see those in a moment. And you also saw those on the previous picture where I assembled the initial version of the system before I cut the pipes to their final lengths. Here's the way you cut copper pipe. There are other ways to cut it. This one is probably the simplest. You also can use a saber saw or a hacksaw. There's some advantages and disadvantages of each method, actually. When you use this tool, it will leave a lip on the inside of the tube, and it's a fair amount of work to get that out, and I'll show you the tool for that in a moment. So what you do to cut it, you've marked where you want to cut it somehow, and you put this on the pipe, you turn this knob until it's gripping the pipe, then you turn it 1/4 turn past where it just touched the pipe. Then you wrap it around once or twice, wrap it around the pipe. The direction you go is this comes out of the picture and around. So I make 2 turns. Then I turn this another 1/4 turn, I make 2 more turns, and so forth until you're almost cut through. Then grab the pipe so it doesn't fall on the floor, then cut it the rest of the way through. It'll make a fairly even cut across the end of the pipe, but as I said, it'll have a lip inside. And then there'll be some scratching on the pipe from the parts of the tool here. Here's the lip that you get after you've used that cutter on the pipe, and then there's the mark that the tool makes on the outside of the pipe. You need to get rid of both those things. After you've cut the pipe with that tubing cutter we just saw, there is a lip on the inside, and this tool, you stick it inside the pipe, press it against the outer edge, and go round and around and around. It shaves off the copper around that lip. It does take a while. The test is simple, though. Stick your finger in the pipe for a large enough pipe, which this is. As you pull your finger out of the pipe, you should not feel a lip. It should feel perfectly smooth coming out of the pipe. If that doesn't happen, you need to keep going around and around with the deburring tool. Now, if you cut the pipe with a jigsaw or saber saw, it really doesn't leave a lip on the inside of the pipe. I would go around it with a deburr tool anyway. The outside of the pipe will be more messed up, but there is a tool to handle the outside of the pipe no matter how you cut the pipe, and that's this tool. They come in specific sizes for the pipe you're using. This one's for 3/4 inch pipe, which is what we're using. You just turn it clockwise as you push it over the end of the pipe until the pipe hits the end of the thing. And just turn it around a bit, and then when you take it off, you have shaved the pipe down to where it's smooth again. I like to go ahead and polish it slightly with steel wool at the end after I use this tool. That may or may not be necessary. You use this tool no matter how you cut the pipe, if you cut it with a saber saw or if you cut it with that tubing cutter that we saw. This is the end of part 1 of a 3-part series. You should watch all the parts from the playlist on my YouTube channel. Once again, here are several ways to visit the Tom's Tech Notes channel page.